Well guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the 100 day project, day 41 I believe, and welcome back to another Foto Fridays. About a week ago we visited the Alhambra. I think you'll have already seen that vlog, and I took my little Fujifilm X100T along with me to see whether I could make a couple of images. I thought what I would do on this particular Foto Fridays is show you some of those, my thought process behind some of them, and whether I think they worked or they didn't work. So what we'll do is we'll jump over to the screen and we'll just walk you through some of those images. Okay, so here are the images, well, all apart from one. I'll come back to that in a moment. The images that I made on the particular day in the Alhambra, and we'll just go through these one by one in no particular order, and I'll sort of again talk you through what I think works, what I think doesn't work. So this is actually a double exposure that I made in camera. This is actually the single exposure image right here, and what actually drew my eye to this initially, just I kind of loved the subdued palette of colors, and I quite like the single image shot here as well. But I did quite like the double exposure, and all I've done there is I've taken the first image, and then I've actually inverted the camera second image, and I've just done the double exposure that way. And I quite like this, both the single exposure and that double exposure. Right, so on to this second particular image. Doesn't work at all. A number of reasons for that. I don't think it's, I mean, I saw him coming walking along through the frame, and in fact if I come out of full screen and go into the sort of raw image, it just doesn't really work for me. I don't think it's a very interesting subject, despite the fact that his shirt kind of matched the brickwork. I don't really have, it's a bit of a messy pavement. I don't really have him, even though he is center in the frame, he's offset against the windows and the reflections. It was a little bit of a grab shot. I just saw him coming along. I just thought I would maybe make an image of him in the center of the frame. But yeah, this is definitely one that won't make the cut at all. Okay, so these next three images actually are a little bit of a, well, they're all related. I saw this couple up on the tower, and the light was actually quite nice. And again, rather than just having the subject or just having the building by itself, I thought maybe it would work with the two people. Now you can see there's a third person kind of coming in here. So I kind of waited for them to get out of the scene. Again, does it work? Does it not work? Probably not. Tells a little bit of a story in terms of, you know, tourists kind of overlooking the city of Granada. This is the final image in that three. If I kind of bring up all three, you can see my sort of thought process. I've actually put a little bit of a crop on the final one, a little bit of a vignette as well. If we just go into the develop module, I think there's a little bit of a vignette here, just to draw the viewer's eye into the scene. I guess it kind of works. It tells a little bit of a story. I quite like the light. You know, maybe a C+, B- type image. So in this particular shot, I really like the curvature of the frame. The light is also reasonably subtle, but I just don't think it works with this sort of big black eye. I should have kind of moved myself along and maybe just sort of got this part of the frame in here. I just don't think, I think this big black area of shadow is very jarring, is actually bringing the sort of eye away from the focus of the image, which is following the curved path through. So again, not an image that really works. And this sadly wasn't a grab shot. I had plenty of time to line up the sort of composition, but in the field I just didn't recognize that this would be so jarring. The shadow would be so jarring. Probably my favorite part of the Alhambra visit was in this area here with these steps. I'll just kind of flow through them just to let you see them. I've actually made a couple of different copies, both in color and in black and white. I'll just go through them all first of all, and then we'll talk a little bit about each of them. Yeah, so all of these here I kind of like quite well. What really drew my eye here is just the sort of flow and the shape of the stairs, but actually this bit of light, natural light that was flowing in from the top of the frame as well. I really quite like that, and I like both in black and white and in color. Let me just bring up the old survey nonsense. We'll get rid of this one. Yeah, so I quite like them in both colour and in black and white. Maybe the black and white one is sort of a bit of a favourite. It's interesting whenever you start to move your feet around a little bit, what works, what doesn't work from a composition point of view. So if I actually bring up these two images instead, so it was a slight movement, but I really think that the right hand image is let down by a couple of things. Firstly, rather than this becoming just a nice curvature, you've got this quite jarring kind of square mark here. You've also got a little bit of the upper architecture coming in here at the top, which again I just don't think is working. That slight movement has also lost a little bit of the curve here in below the stairs. So I think this was maybe only 1 or 2 steps to the right, but I think this one on the left probably works better. And as I say, maybe my preference would be in black and white. Moving slightly further on, again, kind of works okay. Certainly not, I don't think, as strong as being in below the staircase. But again, maybe it tells a little bit of a story of the architecture. And again, you've got that lovely light coming in. What may have actually worked better is if I had have taken a couple of steps back and had this curvature of the upper part of the architecture flowing neatly between the top right hand corner of the frame and the top left hand corner of the frame. But again, I guess it's another one of those C+ type images. And if we move further on again, sorry, I made it in black and white as well. I don't think black and white adds too much to it. I think the composition really lets this one down in itself. And then these three here. So again, it was just that lovely natural curve. This is that same staircase, but now I'm actually looking up towards the staircase. So this first one doesn't work at all, mainly because I'm shooting, I think I was shooting this at about an f5.6 or something. Light was at a premium, so of course my depth of field was going to be a little bit of a challenge. And what has happened here, rather than this becoming a kind of a point of interest that's sort of pointing the viewer into the frame, it's actually out of focus, and it really is quite jarring. So that certainly isn't working. A slight change in composition, and I think this perhaps works a little bit better. Now you can see now that I actually have focus achieved on the first part of the staircase, but we lose a little bit of that focus naturally in the top part of the frame and in the door here as well. But it's certainly, from a composition point of view, I believe stronger. And then the third one here, again, we have lost a little bit of the focus here on the initial part of the staircase. Focus now is achieved in the upper half of the staircase, and I think this, from a composition point of view, would probably be my favorite out of the two here, or out of the three. In fact, that first one's definitely oh, we're going all crazy, people. Let's get rid of those two. I think this right hand one is probably my favorite of the two. The big thing is that this very bright portion, now I could put a mask on there and lower that exposure somewhat, but I think it actually still is going to be a very bright scene, and probably not something that's going to be safe. So again, nice idea, Nigel, but I just don't think any of these images work. So then again, focusing on this stairwell, again, I really like this here. I just like some of the sort of different directions that the eye is going as you follow that staircase down, and you've got some nice diagonals, you've got some nice sort of curvature as well, and some nice really soft light and shadows. A slight change in perspective, and obviously a move to black and white. I quite like both of these, actually. I think both of these work reasonably well, and again tell a bit of a story of the architecture of this particular palace in the Alhambra. So there was a lady wandering around the complex in a seemingly wedding dress, I'm not sure whether it was a professional shoot or just a couple looking to get some nice portraits done. Not surprising to pick this area because there was some lovely natural light and some lovely light and shadow coming in. I just grabbed this image very, very quickly, not actually noticing that there was a person coming in here. Now I could take this into Photoshop and do a content aware sort of fill and get rid of that person, or I could just wait till they get out of the way. Now I have actually done a little bit of work on this here. If we could just go into the develop mode again, mainly again looking at just highlighting this area of light by putting a slight vignette on there, and I quite like this actually. It just, again, trying to sort of tell a little bit of a story. You know, what's this lady up to? What's this lady doing? I'm not sure whether here is she actually glaring at me, wondering what to know. So she's actually looking up at the moment at the person who was taking the image. So again, from a story perspective, I quite like this one. So ever since seeing, in fact, I'm just going to jump over to Safari. Ever since seeing some of Charlie Waite's work with stairwells and with arches and things like that, I really would love to try to sort of have a little bit of a collection of some lovely arches and things like that. So that's why I get drawn to sort of scenes like this. Now again, I don't think it quite works just because of this really bright area in the bottom right hand corner. I really love the soft light and the soft shadows in the rest of the image, but again, I think your eye is kind of being drawn a little bit to this brighter area. Slight change in compositions, slightly different sort of way in doing the post processing, but again, I don't think any of these really work that well. But again, I'll keep searching, and in fact, if I go back to an image that I shot back in, I believe this was in Latvia, I really like this. So even though there is some sort of lighter areas in the frame, they are slightly less jarring, and so this is one that I really quite like. But sadly, I think even the best of the other ones, I just don't think this really works. But I'll carry on looking for little delicate scenes such as this, and hopefully create a little bit of a collection of some nice architecture. Alright then, so looking back through the images, what really or what are my sort of favorite ones from this here? I don't think there's anything in here first and foremost that would make a sort of end of year portfolio, but it is quite nice to sometimes have a little bit of a collection from a particular day. And so with that in mind, there's probably a few that stand out. So I think the double exposure, I really like that, and in fact the single exposure as well, but if I had to choose between them both, I think it would be the double exposure one. I think the black and white, the first black and white stairwell image that I made, probably the color version of this particular stairwell. I think the lady in the white dress, and then if I was to include one of the arches, then probably this first one with a little bit more of a grungy post-processing. So perhaps these 5 images, maybe I'd want to sort of have 5 in black and white, 5 in color, not sure, but perhaps these 5 particular images would be the ones that would maybe tell the story for me personally from our day at the Alhambra. And as I say, these were all taken on the Fujifilm X100T, my very now battered X100T, but one of my favorite cameras for just wandering around the cities and various places, just making images. Had to open the door, camera got a little bit too hot. Anyway, hopefully you find that useful. I think it's the important lesson for me here is that we're making images rather than just saying, you know what, there's nothing really here to be had. And certainly 1 or 2 out of this final collection of 5 probably or may actually sneak in to at least the shortlist when I come to make my 12 favorite images from the past year. Right guys, well I think that's time for coffee. Once again, thanks a lot for following along. I'll put a little montage up of those final 5 images at the end. And I guess from the 100-day project, day 41 was it? We shall catch up tomorrow.